Of the CRA meeting, March 14th to order. Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, roll call.
Chairman Dale Massad,
Here.
Vice Chair Terrence Rowe,
Here.
Member Nancy Britton,
Here.
Member Jenny Sorrell,
Here.
Member William Dittmer. Please let the record show that Mr. Dittmer is absent this evening. City Attorney Jim Matthew.
Here.
City Manager Vincent Lupo.
Here.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the last CRA?
Motion to approve the minutes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any announcements from staff? Comments from the council, up to here. Anyone? I just want to say we are ready to launch. Okay, first business, contributions for the July celebration at Waterfront Park. I think we've already discussed this. Donating $5,000 from CRA. Do we need a motion in a second? I thought we already had done this.
Well, you're moving to take the
Oh,
money out.
okay, take the money out of here. Do I have a motion?
Need a motion in a second.
Motion to take $5,000 out of CRA funds and appoint them to the 4th of July celebration in Waterfront Park for fireworks.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Not a motion in a second.
On this?
Sure.
I just, since we're gonna pay the $5,000 out of our pocket, are we gonna be in charge? Because not only are we paying $5,000, but, we also have our police, which is more money, so the city's gonna put most of the money out for this, and our reputation is on the line. So I suggest the city take charge of this program versus letting anyone else do it. That's just my thought. I just wonder what you guys feel.
Well, I'll just say this, the liability goes to the people that are in charge.
That's us,
And if you'd like to,
because it's
not
our
us,
city, right?
not us.
I can let the city attorney
Would you
I'd
address
like to make
this.
one comment on that. It was been my recommendation to Mr. Lupo and a lot of Councilman Britton's concern. I was concerned with that also. I told Mr. Lupo that if we're going to give $5,000 to an entity such as the Businessmen's Association, that I would be recommending a bond. My recommendation is that we pay the money directly to the vendor who will be producing the fireworks, and then they would have a bond, okay?
Correct.
That was my recommendation.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Repairs to limestone fishing pier, hoorah.
So, just real quick, so we'll get the bond, from the people before we start the fireworks.
Well, there'll be more than just a bond from the people, though. They're gonna have to produce their own copy of insurance. There's,
Right, but I mean,
Oh.
just everything that we're talking about will be produced.
yes, ma'am.
Mr. Bill, are you gonna?
Let me start, if I might, Mayor.
Please.
The limestone fishing pier was closed to the public back in 2014 after a structural report had indicated that the pier was no longer safe for public use. The report, unfortunately, I apologize for not including it in your original packet, and at the request of Councilwoman Britton, it is passed out before you. It is a copy of that original 2014 report. More recently, we've taken a very hard look at that pier. In particular, our building official, our public works people donned appropriate gear, went under the bridge, took their own samples, took their own pictures, and subsequently we came up with a plan to turn that site back into a fishing pier. That includes ADA capabilities, includes refurbishment of the restrooms to make them also ADA compliant, lighting, railing by our staff, and we estimate that that structure can be turned back into a viable, safe fishing pier at a cost of approximately $8,000 utilizing our own staff. To that end, I'll ask Mr. Muse if he would like to make a quick presentation with respect to your perspective on this fishing pier.
Yes, I would like to. We had been asked to look at the pier, see, as Mr. Lugo had said, that, to see if it was obviously restored. I'm a historic architect, I'm an architect, I've been an architect 40 years, restored quite a few buildings. And, sorry. And this was no exception to do this, look at this building, this dock, which is really what it is. We went under it, looked at it. There are some issues with it, certainly can be resolved. I have some photographs that I wanted to show you. I need to turn the lights off probably so we can see them better, if you don't mind. Let me make sure I turn it right. Oh, that's it. Thank you. Let me get my pointer. Thank you. This is yours truly, of course. I'm bending over. I think I dropped my watch there. I'm not sure why Mr. Lupo, I believe, took that photograph, and I'm not sure why that's the case, but hang on just a second. Bear with me. I can't see. There it is. Okay, this is the east end of the building. I'm sorry, of the dock. As you can see, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 piers there. Those piers are in really good shape. I know there's some concern about them. The wood has deteriorated somewhat, but the wood can be replaced, and that's not really a big deal. Hang on a second. Is it working? Not yet. There we go. That's the east side. It's kind of a bad photograph, but at least you can see it's virtually the same thing. There's one of the public works, I think that's Tom. We were trying to determine some of the things to do at that point. This is out the end of the pier. This is at low tide, of course. This is out where the boats go on, and you rarely see that. This is showing some of the work that's underneath it. There, as I said, there are some areas that need repair, but you can see from this that there's some really good things there. What had happened, this is wood that has been replaced sometime back in the past, and it has worked quite well. Here, right here in this middle was a beam that was there, a concrete beam, which we'll come to in some other photographs. And the concrete beam is actually missing. These were concrete beams. Again, I'll explain to them in just a moment. The sequence of the photographs are out of order, but what had happened is that beam is missing. The beam goes from there up to back up in here, supporting the entire thing. And as you can see, the pier is still there. I walked underneath it. There were several gentlemen sitting on top of it, walking around underneath it, and it did not fall in, or I wouldn't be here, obviously. But we obviously need to replace that. That's part of a plan that we have. Oops. This is one of the concrete piers, and that shows the concrete beam. I believe that's a concrete beam. I can't tell really from the concrete beam. Let me go on. This is an excellent example of this is back at the head wall. Here's the concrete beam, and as you can see right there, there's actually been wood added on to these things anyway sometime in the past. So there has been some remedial action done to this dock before, and all we're doing is just going back and adding on to it again. Again, you can really see here the wood. See that wood right there? This is the concrete. Here's the supports for it going across. What happens in structures, of course, is that you've got this beam here. Well, that beam isn't just sitting there by itself doing everything. All of this unit is working in unison as a structure. So while this is carrying it all, it's staying together. That's why the beam at the other end that had collapsed and fallen, the pier was still there. Is that the pier is working as a unison in structure. The structure is, and it's not going to fall in. And again, this is much better photograph. That's actually one of the concrete columns that's there, of the beams that are there. Another one. This one is one that has had some remedial work done. That's wood that's right there. This is concrete. The concrete is spalled off. Again, I'll explain that to you in a moment when I get to that photograph. But this has already been worked on. We need to do some additional work here just to bring it back in line. More. This is just showing some of the wood that's here. This was actually a lamp post that does not need to be there. This is showing one of the things that happened is this concrete beam was installed years ago, I believe in 1993. And apparently it was an inferior product to begin with. I suspect it was lying in a field somewhere and somebody got it cheap or something and brought it in and put it in there because it's precast concrete. Precast concrete should really not be doing that. It should not be spalling off like this. But you can see where there's little cracks in airline cracks in it like that. That's probably from wave action and the fact that this was an inferior concrete product to begin with. That doesn't mean it's going to fall in. That doesn't mean it's going to collapse. That simply means it's not doing 100% of what it's supposed to be doing. It could be doing 60% and it would still be fine. What happens is the concrete spans from pier to pier. And you can see here, these are these piers here that go down to the ground. And I have a drawing in a moment I'll go to also. And you can see that they're actually in pretty good shape. This is a pier, this is a pier. This is the wood that has been added on to the deck sometime in the past. And really a good way to think of this thing is that you probably all have docks in your backyard. This is just a big dock. It just happens to be 15 feet wide instead of 6 feet wide. When it was built, this is poured in place concrete. That's most extraordinary for a dock, as you know. Yours, I doubt any of you have a poured in place concrete dock. But that is extraordinary. And it goes down to the ground and into bedrock, no doubt. And of course, I'm sure that the structure is fine. This just goes to show another of where the beam was added. That beam that we're going to have to add in is right there. This is toward the middle of the river. I think that's Catches. What's the restaurant across the street?
Yes,
Anyone?
Catches.
Okay. This is looking toward Catches. This is the beam that's on the north side, I'm sorry, the west side of the pier. The other one's on the west side. The one in the middle we'll have to add in. We do have plans to add that one in. Oops, wait a minute, I missed my. This is showing a beam that sometime through the past had rotted out and spalled off, and somebody had broken it out and cut the steel off, and yet here's the concrete. So what they did was they took here's the wood beam. So what they did was they took these wood beams and sistered them and secured them into this concrete beam that's there, and then back behind is the same thing. So this is now working as the beam in lieu of that. And in fact, in several places where I had photographs, it will show you that the wood beam is working better than the concrete. This again is that beam that we lost. There's the little structure for it. From there to all the way across there is gone. That is the nailer, which is like a nailer right there on it. So this entire thing is missing. If you simply add that back in, the beam back in, the pier is going to be fine. There's really nothing wrong with it. It's just showing again the wood and the wood joists that are supporting it. Another one. This is showing some of the fastenings from the pier and to the wood. This is, some of these things need to be replaced. That's just a normal wear and tear. Again, you can see from these photographs, it really doesn't look as bad underneath as you might want to think it does. This is what I wanted you to see. Somewhere, and unfortunately I've lost it for the time being, these things were put in for framing members. They're the steel beams that go, here's the pier, there's a lintel that goes across here. These go across the 30 feet or so, then this is your deck up top. What had happened is these are probably some old light poles or something like that from an electric company that somebody got. As I said, who knows how they got it. But what happens is you see these 4 black things there, that's the steel and precast concrete. And what happens is the water has gotten in like that and spalled this off. Well, that edge may be spalled off, but 80% of that beam is still there. So it's not going to fall in. It's not going to deteriorate, it's not going to deteriorate anymore. We're going to make sure it doesn't deteriorate anymore because of the fact that we're going to repack it. This shows inside of another one. There's where I think one of the other beams was. This shows it's actually in very good shape. This is probably the worst case. This is the steel that has broken through, spalling because of water getting in the concrete. Concrete is like a sponge. It absorbs water. When then the water gets on the steel rusts, the steel pushes the concrete off. That's exactly what's happened here. This can be simply either one of two things: cut out. If we just elect to leave it and just clean it up, we clean it with rust inhibitor, and then come back and put hydraulic cement around these things, which is a simple matter to do, and it's fixed. Okay, I'm back to where I wanted. There were some other photographs. How did I get to those? Bear with me a second. There was another set. How to get back to where these are. There they are. Now go to no. See, is that the same one? Yeah, there it is. Okay. No. Yeah, I'll go to that one. I'm not sure I remember what this one was. Oh, it is, okay. It's just long. Okay, let me go back. Bear with me just a second. I wanted to show you a project that we did while it has There we go. This is I call it my church. When I moved to Tampa in 1957, I lived 2 doors from this church, and I remember the bells ringing, and I'm a history buff, so I did some work out in Colorado that was historical preservation, and I came back, and this church had burned, and it was going to be torn down. The city of Tampa, it was in the city of Tampa downtown, it was built in 1902. 1902, sorry, thank you. The city had condemned it to be torn down, but they didn't have the funds for it. So I purchased the building, and this is what it looks like right now. It's actually an attorney's office. It's 1 mile north of downtown Tampa. Nice old church. This is an inside shot. While it's very dark, you can see at least the cavernous effect of it, how big the project is, how big it was inside. I think there's another one here. This shows a little bit better going inside. This is what it looks like when I bought it. A little stunning, huh? That's a shocker. That's what it looked just like the first day I walked into that church. That's what it looked like. Purchased this church. This is the back, going back toward, that's the big circular window that you just saw there at the front. I purchased this church and restored it. And of course, that's what it wound up looking like. The reason I'm showing you that is so you'll have some confidence in the fact that I do believe that this dock can be rebuilt. It's hardly the church. I think that it's a matter of, I was surprised at the price. I think the price is fantastic. I'd gone back with Public Works several times and said, have you got this covered? Have you got that covered? To make sure that everybody has everything covered, and they seem to have had it covered. So I'm actually excited about it. With that, I'll shut up and turn it over to you.
Thank you very much. I think we could have spent 20 times that much for engineering. Let me see where we are here. We have someone from the public that wants to speak, I believe. Not you? I thought so. Go.
Sandra Spalding, 8207 Old Post Road. I'm very pleased to hear about the pier. Remember, I live next to the park, and it was wonderful how they used to fish, and the families went over, and it was really nice. And I'm very happy that we have a new building official that knows what he's doing, and that is going to redo our pier. I think that's an asset for our city.
Yes.
That's all I have to say.
Having no one else signed up, bring it to council. I'd like to say that, Bill, you were talking about the poured concrete. I know you're a history buff, that was US 19, I think. So this wasn't built for a few people, this was built for trucks and cars, and, any comments?
Well, this project's been very near and dear to my heart for some time since it was closed. People have nowhere else in this city, outside of Brasher Park, to go fish, and this was a good spot. People used to like it, they used it. The only other place I remember was that corner on Limestone, and now that's privately owned, or was, and now it's enforced that they can't use it.
Right.
So, I think it's very important we get this thing back open. But safety's got to be paramount. I believe that being it was built for cars to cross a river, it probably has a lot more structural integrity than we give it credit for. It does need some maintenance, it needs some repair, it needs some replacement, certain things. Some of these pictures are concerning. But I think that with enough support from other boards and things, that I don't think we have to have concrete columns under there to support 15 or 20 fishermen. And I think this will probably be the best way to proceed. I don't agree and never agreed with the structural report we got before, because I don't think they put the time and effort into really doing due diligence. And from what I had read in this report, they took pictures and just said, no, it's no good, you gotta throw it out. And,
How much was that, Bill?
pardon?
What was the bill for that? I
Quite a
remember
bit.
something large. Nancy, please.
I just want to make a quick statement, just so I can say I did.
Okay?
The structural report, in my opinion, really, it holds very deep in my heart because of the fact that, you know, this is a man who's an engineer, a structural engineer who gave us advice. Now, you know, I respect what this gentleman is saying, but I don't feel that just one structural report and then him saying that we can fix it, when this guy says what has to be done, and you're saying it's a big difference in what needs to be done, I really think that, you know, this would be something that we need to get a second opinion on before we start putting human beings on it and expect the city to be protected. There's just too much evidence here in this report from a structural engineer that says it is not safe. So I want to see the pier open. I agree with you guys as far as like the fishing. I've watched people do the fish there all my life. For 31 years I've been here. But I just, like Terry said, I want people to be safe. And that's why I invited Robert Napper here, because, you know, I want him to understand that if this is passed to go forward, to alert the community that, hey, you know, do this at your own risk, because you have a structural report that says there's an issue. This gentleman's saying there's not. I just think we need another opinion, but if we don't go in that direction, I think that the citizens of the county need to know that, you know, there were some issues with the bridge prior to them putting their grandchildren or children on the
Okay.
bridge.
May I respond?
Okay, I have a comment on that. Just right off the bat, the structural engineer report that you're talking about says in its very first sentence that it was performed a limited visual inspection. So did they get underneath it and check and see?
No.
Well, there's all kinds of pictures.
Well, I'm
Ain't
just
that
saying,
picture
did they,
catches?
did they do that? But it says a limited visual inspection.
I'm asking for a second opinion. If you guys don't want to do that, that's fine.
Okay. Well, I for one don't wanna do
May
that.
I respond?
I'm sorry?
May I respond? Is my
Please
phone,
do.
is my mic working now? Let me explain to all of you. I am a registered architect. I have been a registered architect for 40 years. When I took my state board exams, I took a 7-part exam, which included structures. I am licensed to be a structural engineer by that very fact. Okay?
That's our second opinion.
I have done over 500 grocery stores. Safety has always been a concern of mine. And I am not going to lose my reputation or my life or my license for a pier for the city. So please, thank you.
We understand totally, sir. Bill, I'm all for this. There's no way to cut that back a span or two without a lot of cost?
No, not really, because
Okay.
you're gonna start changing the structure of it, not the
Okay.
integrity of it at that point. It works as a unit right now, it's a unit frame construction, and it should stay that way, really.
How long ago did you do that church?
4 years ago, 5 years ago.
Still there?
Yeah.
It's a law, it's not a law, it's on it, yes. Take that as a compliment.
I will tell you, just to follow up with Nancy, we didn't get a second opinion on tearing down a 150-foot pier, but I got 2 second opinions. Both said it can be fixed. The previous administration did not want to hear that. We gave away that pier and all the lumber you could use. You could build the thing across the river with the lumber we gave away. That's all I have to say. I'll accept a
To
motion.
you guys, I don't want to be responsible for anyone getting hurt on it. That's just the bottom line, you know, so I'm just
You got it.
saying, I don't approve of it.
You got it.
I mean, what other, if we had a second opinion and it agreed or disagreed,
Then what do you
Well,
got?
if they agree with the structural engineer, then you go in one direction. If they agree with him, then you go forward, that's all.
What if they,
This way you know that people are safe.
it'll cost more to get another opinion than it would to go with
It's
this.
not about money, Dale, it's about safety of the people.
It is about money.
It's
You
about
know,
the
that's why
safety.
we are digging out
You can't
from where
put
we
value
are.
in a human being's life, you just can't do that.
I've heard that.
I won't put my grandchildren on, I guarantee you that.
Look, this is not a pier, this is a road. There isn't a dock in this city safer than it is right now. So, council discretion, I'll accept a motion.
well, we'll have the certification of our building official, that this will have a safety rating and all that we need to,
Of course, and
do we have to meet,
my ceiling also, I'm, as an architect and engineer.
do we have to meet any criteria or, say, permitting standards, or is there anything we have to meet to open this thing and verify that it's going to be supportive enough?
Not really, I mean, I have structural drawings I've prepared for the analysis of the entire thing, that's why this conversation is, if I showed these, but I mean, we really need to do that. I wouldn't be sitting here telling you we could do it if I didn't believe we could do it.
Turn your microphone on, sir, I apologize.
Sorry.
I have all the confidence in the world in our building inspector and our city officials, and I think that $170,000 as put out for this other thing is exorbitant. I don't doubt these people's credentials or anything, but they even say in their own that it was a operational vehicular bridge. I don't think we've got any fishermen that are gonna be big enough to challenge that. So I really don't think that it is that structurally unsound. I've been out there and seen it, and it's just easily fixed. And I think we can do it with a reasonable rate. And I think $8,000 is really a great price.
And I think we should extend that to 10 for any overrun. Personally, up to the council.
I would like to give them a little leeway, that's for sure.
Well, exactly, for any kind of overrun. So I think that's reasonable. So I'd like to make a motion to accept what our building inspector and our council people have come up with.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Anyone from the public? 46 seconds.
3 minutes and 46 seconds. Sandra Spalding, 8207 Old Post Road. I think the bridge could be fixed very easily, properly. I feel our building official does have the engineering background and the capability of doing it for our city. And I would like to see it fixed. I think most of the residents would like to see it fixed. We have this wonderful park now. Let's have a wonderful fishing pier so everybody can enjoy it, not only in the city, but others that come in. Thank you.
Anyone else? I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are
What else
launching.
we got?
Now, you have taken care of some of the east
Code
side,
enforcement.
west side.
No, code
We
enforcement.
need the code enforcement. Where's my agenda? Have a request for code enforcement officer position, Mr. Lupo.
City Council has indicated a desire to increase the city's code enforcement presence in the community. Currently, the city has one dedicated full-time code enforcement officer to investigate, abate code violations. Due to the increase in economic activity and the absence of our code enforcement officer for an extended period of time, city staff has determined that the code enforcement needs cannot be met by one individual. To that end, a part-time code enforcement officer has been hired to help address the need. However, code enforcement activities are limited to the amount of time a part-time employee can dedicate to their work. Given the amount of new development that has taken place, the addition of a full-time code enforcement officer position is critical to ensure that the code violations are handled quickly, efficiently, and professionally. I'm requesting approval of the CRA to utilize those funds for that position at this time.
Well, what period of time do you think the CRA will have to hold that position?
At least for this fiscal year, and we come up with a budget, I'll investigate other alternatives for different funding other than CRA.
Other comment?
How much, I didn't see a price here, how much do you think this is gonna
Aaron?
cost?
Since we've only got 6 months remaining in this fiscal year, it's gonna run approximately $22,900. That's including all benefits.
Including what?
All benefits.
Oh,
Health insurance, retirement, payroll taxes, everything.
So this position pays like 43,000 a year?
Yes.
Like government's gonna run private business out of town unless Trump does something, huh? Any comments from the council? I know that many of you have been upset that we aren't, we have no code enforcement, basically. Sherry's been in the hospital, and we're growing at leaps and bounds. If you look out on Washington and the other developments, we need one full-time, and I think, I don't know how Sherry's gonna be, how long she's gonna be sick. I think this is a wise hire.
I have a question. Is this person gonna be considered temporary? Somebody that's gonna be here just for a year or two?
No, ma'am. That
Okay.
person, we're bringing this person on, he's currently on now as a part-time. He's coming on as a full-time code enforcement officer, and we'll keep, in my opinion, this city will need 2 full-time code enforcement officers for the foreseeable future.
So if he's coming in at 22,900 and he's already part-time, is that the correct figure for 6 months? Even if he's working part-time already?
Yes, ma'am.
So the 22,900 would be.
We'll cover his,
In addition to his part-time?
yes.
So what is he being paid now?
Right now, he's at $15 an hour, and we had, a full-time employee works 2,080 hours a year.
Okay,
We had set him up for 1,320, but he's only been here for a couple months.
okay, so that 6 months would then still stay at 22,900.
Yes.
Okay, even with the part-time, okay. Motion to approve.
Second.
Public, all in favor?
I,
Aye.
Passes. We are now ready to launch. Engineering to prepare the DMMA site, pages 18 to 14, please read carefully and vote early and often.
If I might, Mayor. For many, many years, this city, for very many years, this city has endeavored to move forward with its dredging dreams and its dredging project. To that extent, we are facing a rather critical deadline, and that deadline is October 1st of this year. And at that point in time, the existing permits for the dredging of this community will indeed expire. We have in the past requested and obtained extensions. It is our understanding that an extension will not be granted beyond October 1st. In order to comply with the grantor of those permits, we need to move forward as quickly as possible to show the permit issuers that we are indeed utilizing funds for the dredging process. Intrinsic in dredging is the necessity to have a DMMA site, which is a dredge materials management area. The city some time ago was fortunate enough to purchase a almost 5-acre site that is, in fact, its DMMA future site. We are requesting the utilization of CRA funds for its intended purpose, which is to begin the process necessary to dredge in this community. We are seeking approval by the CRA committee to solicit proposals from our engineering firms that the city has already approved. We have an approved engineering list to move forward and submit task order proposals for this project. To that end, we intend to utilize funds from the CRA contingency line item. And that is the request currently before council.
so let me ask a question here.
Yes, sir.
This deadline's October 1st.
First, correct?
If we show movement forward,
Yes, sir.
is that going to open a window so we can extend these permits beyond that?
That is exactly my understanding, that when we begin this process, we inform the Corps, we inform them that we have begun the process, and that relieves us of the extinction date. We have originally had this money set aside in the Restore Act funding, which has not been released yet from the federal treasury. We have most recently sent a letter to communication to Mr. Curtis requesting that they inform the United States Treasury of our hardship, because we will be utilizing our CRA funds, not grant funds that have not come down yet. So we have tasked Mr. Curtis, who is the intermediary for this fund, to please use every possible effort to release those funds. In the event those funds are released, we'll immediately utilize those funds instead of any of the CRA funds. But in the interim, we need the CRA funds to begin the process and relieve us of the pressure of a terminated $1 million dredging permit.
I'm just a little confused because I didn't think we were getting that money because we had to move the launch from Nix Park over to Waterfront Park. And that caused an issue, and because we changed the plans, we had to resubmit. Once we had to resubmit, our chances of getting the money were not 100%.
No,
We
I'm
never
sorry.
changed the plan.
I'm sorry, ma'am.
No, I'm just asking.
Yes, let me try and respond. Intrinsic in that first phase grant was the preparation of a DMMA site, which is a requirement for dredging.
I understand.
So it is part and parcel of the original application. Beyond that, we would move forward with the second, well, let's call it Phase B of the first phase of the grant.
Are
But-
we getting the grant or not? Are we 100%
We
sure
are-
we're getting it?
There's no, we have already been approved, but as the funds have not been released. That's the only information that I have. And that is as of several days ago when we contacted Curtis, Mr. Curtis. So yes, we've been approved. The funds are being held, haven't been released by the United States Treasury. We cannot sit back and allow the time to pass us to where we will not be able to meet the October 1st deadline, and the community will lose its dredging permits. That's the position that we find ourselves in, because.
All the permits in the whole all the permits?
Yes, ma'am, it is it
Everyone?
is the a single entity block.
Why all of a sudden, after us being able to constantly renew, why all of a sudden is this changing?
I can respond to that. I wrote a letter to the Army Corps asking about just having Sand Pebble or another canal piggyback on ours, therefore we would get started. They wrote back with so many tripwires that it's not even possible. We wouldn't even get started by October. This is one block. It's all of it or none, basically is what they told me. And there's no way to do it other than do it. We've been waiting since 2014, February of 2014, we've been waiting for the Restore Act.
Right, but we don't have any documentation as to those letters that have your correspondence with them, stating that we have no other choice? I mean, I don't see that.
Well, you know what, we can always stop funding it if we get the Restore Act and then start getting it from them. I don't see it coming, but I don't see $1 million going.
I was gonna say, we've got about $1.5 million wrapped up in these permits. And at this point, we'll lose them if we don't make some type of motion forward. I talked to.
But I don't know that for sure, and I thought I wanna see all that evidence.
Yeah, I mean, I talk to Curtis almost every day. I go in and out of his office, so, and we've had many discussions, and he has been very frustrated with the progress of these funds coming through. And it would probably behoove this council to have each one of us write and tell them that we are experiencing a hardship and that we are about to lose $1.5 million that we spent to get these permits because of their inaction. So I know I'm gonna write one, and I know the city manager has already written one, but I don't, I know we've been sitting on these permits for years, and we've
That's right.
renewed them and renewed them.
We
but
are ending.
You have to look at the government. If you're not moving forward, they figure you're crying wolf. And I can understand why they wouldn't wanna proceed any further with these permits and let them hang out there.
They're
I
not
would like
going.
to have the opportunity to speak to some of these government officials and see some of that paperwork and put it on for the next meeting, because this way, you know, because using CRA meeting, monies, you know, we're already using it for funding our, employees. We've complained about that. So I would like the opportunity to make some phone calls before I make a decision.
Okay. Well, I don't need any opportunities, and I need to go forward, and if we don't go forward, we're fools. Say it that simply, we have October 1, 2017, fund the thing. If you spend $50,000, then in comes the Restore Act, that's all you lost. If they don't ever come in, you're gonna spend the $300,000, but you're going.
It's March
And
14th.
it
It can't
doesn't
wait 2
matter.
weeks for us to do any more
It
investigation.
takes 60 days to get a
It's March
letter
14th.
back from anyone.
I know, but it's.
Okay,
only-
that'd be April and May. Now we're into May.
So-
You're
so
2 months out.
At our next meeting would be the end of March. It would give us opportunity to, you know, just.
Well, you do the opportunities. How do
I'd
you
like
feel?
to make a motion to approve the recommendations that we put forth to get started on this. I don't wanna lose $1.5 million worth of
You
permits.
have no evidence. He's telling you hearsay. There's no evidence.
There is evidence all over the place. They said
But
no.
he's telling, he's
I-
telling
They
you
said
information. He's
no.
talking to you about emails that we don't have in front of us. That's not fair.
Well, you want
They
me to run
said
get 'em,
no
Nancy?
Yeah, go run
extension.
get 'em.
They said no extension,
Oh,
Nancy.
Diana,
They're
Dale.
not gonna go any
Didn't
further
I
than
send
that.
those to you, Vince, or no?
$1.5 million has already
don't
been
even
put
know if
out.
we're
We
getting
didn't get
the-
a dime for
the-
that.
the
We didn't get
money.
anything for that.
Anything else?
Do you have anything, Mr. Lupo, that would satisfy her,
I don't have a piece
You
of
guys wanna
correspondence.
wait, I'll run home and
I don't have a piece of correspondence specifically to this issue. The conversations that we've had, verbal, how, and it goes back to how long you have had these permits. And the information that we seem to be gleaming from them is that they've had it. I don't have it in writing. The expenditure that I'm asking you is not a $300,000 sum. It's a minimal sum of money to retain these engineers to give us a task order. That task order, we can come back with the prices that they're going to give us. And all that does is, once I have that, I can preclude any issues with respect to an extension. If you're asking me for an absolute document I do not have it, then I can tell you it takes weeks from phone conversations just to be able to talk to individuals up there and to ask them for a clear document declaration. I don't know how long it would take to work through their chain of command up the Corps. I'm just not willing, my recommendation to you is to proceed
Can't wait
with
2
an
weeks.
abundance of caution to move forward. The 2 weeks,
I'm just asking for 2 weeks. That's all I'm asking for. You know, just to do some more
I
investigation.
have a motion and a second. Any more from council? Mrs. Roll? Out to public? Go.
Sandra Spoldy, 8207 Old Post Road. Councilman Barnett allowed our permits to go down the drain years ago from procrastinating. You had all this time that you could have written yourselves. Don't let these permits go down the drain again, because you're not gonna get them again. Now do something. We've wasted hundreds of thousands of dollars and not one shovel has been dug up from these canals. Now, you know what? Just get off the ride, step on the land, look at your canals and do something. Don't lose these permits again. You won't get them back. And that's gonna be the heart of Port Richey. Thank you.
So what is the amount of money you're requesting here?
We're at, public.
Pete Barnett, 8428 Green Street. Let's move, council. As a citizen here, let's move. I've heard this crap month after month after month, the same people. You have it, let's use it. The CRA money's been spent for everything else in this city. Let's use it for the citizens, because I'd love my property values to go up. So let's get off the fence, make a vote, let's do it. Thank you.
Ms. Hart.
Arthur G. Marino, 8211 Brent Street. I've had copies of emails from Doc with his thoughts of having the permits piggyback. And all the responses he got, he forwarded to me, and it's impossible to do. You know, if we piggybacked in one section one to do it, that would get us started. But all his efforts to get it started without doing the whole project, he got a negative on. Thank you.
Thank you.
So what you're saying is the
Hold
whole
on,
project
Nancy.
has to be done?
Just
We have
started.
to
Once
start.
it's started, the Corps accepts the project as being started.
So where would we start?
As soon as we get the first task order from one of the engineering firms that this council selects,
And how would we fund it?
from the CRA funds.
CRA.
And how much do you think it's gonna cost?
I can't give you that number. It certainly is well within the budget limits of the CRA funding. I can't give you the exact number. Not until we
That's really
contact,
significant amounts of money.
not until we contact one of the engineers that you choose. I can't choose the engineer. I can't speak with the engineers until after you've selected them. I can't give you that price until I talk with them. Several engineers may come in with different prices for you.
Right, I'm saying that there were significant amounts of money, and I just wonder where the money's coming from, like, so, my
It is
question to
coming
you
from the
is
CRA contingency funds.
Once we start this whole process,
Yes, ma'am.
they're basically saying we have to go through with the whole entire project.
Once we start the process, we have started the dredging process. What we intend to do is to prepare the DMMA site, which is part and parcel of the grant that we're trying to receive. So they will give us the first, most economic, that's the request that we're gonna put for them. The first task proposal that is the least expensive, because I don't wanna spend our CRA money, I wanna spend the grant money. All right, so that's the strategy that we're attempting to use. And the entire strategy is simply to preclude the Corps of Engineers from saying, you've passed the October 1st deadline. The Corps of Engineers, for better or for worse, has been placed on notice about this project because of the requests to split the permit to different entities or to allow a different entity to use the permit. The Corps of Engineers are now keenly aware of this entire process. Councilwoman, we're stuck in the middle here. I am frightened to death to let a day go, one more day pass without at least moving in a positive direction towards releasing that October 1st date. What the prices are, I cannot tell you until you, council, have selected the
But
engineers from your list.
We're required to start something. We have got to put a shovel in.
At that point in time, we have started something by virtue of that first task order. we take a copy of that first task order, which says DMMA. The first task order is to do something for the DMMA. And we take it and we send it to the Corps of Engineers to say, see, Corps of Engineers, we, the city of Port Richey, have begun the first thing that is required to do dredging, which is the DMMA site. Entirely different from us obtaining the funds. This is strictly Corps activity, going to the United States Corps of Engineers. There's the difference, and I think you can begin to see the difference. One is a funding issue, the other one is a permit issue. And that's the real difference. What we're attempting to do is to get the most minimal amount of money spent from our CRA funds to get a single task order towards the dredging project. And the very first thing required for any dredging project is, where are you going to be able to put this? You have to have this site in place before you can take the first scoop of earth out.
So once we do all that, then say nothing happens for 5 years, then what? Are we back in the same boat again?
Nothing happens for 5 years. Please, God, don't even think
Just
about
saying,
that.
I mean, you know,
I can't envision that. As soon as the funds which we have been approved for are released, the next group of task orders will come down from the engineers that you all select to get to the dredging site, to do it. So, and that's only $1 million, $666,000 their grant, $334,000 our 1/3 portion to make the $1 million block.
now, the other question I have is when the DMA site is utilized, how long will the things sit on, the actual dredge material have to sit on that site? Because are we prepared to have people go out of business and then sue the city? Like Alex's restaurant next door because of the smell or something
No,
like that?
part and parcel of the obligation of the engineer.
No, I'm just asking
No, no,
questions. You don't have to
I'll
sit
be
there
more
and
than,
shake your head.
I'll be more than happy to answer your questions, Councilwoman. One of the tasks of the engineers is to properly allow the city to utilize that site. They must recognize where it is and what its functions are. The site is actually divided into several specific entities. One to store rocks, one to store non-volatile dredgings, one one section to store dredgings that are immediately being dehydrated. It can be sold, moved, put anywhere in the city. So it's set up in strategic locations. Part and parcel of the preparation for that DMMA site is a mechanism to get the dredging material there. It's all one contiguous operation. The site, on its best day, will never be used continuously for a whole 2 years, 3 years, because of the limited funds that we have. We are going to utilize the first $1 million to start dredging canals 1 and 18, and whatever, this is all after we prepare the DMMA site. The next second phase brings in additional funds to do other canals in their rotation. This, as you well know, this process is a multi-million-dollar function. We cannot accomplish the entire process with only $1 million. We will be lucky to prepare everything necessary for the DMMA site with most of that $1 million.
Will there ever be a tax to the citizens for any of this, as far as like, you know, where we go out, I'm sorry, I can't think of the word of it, assessment?
That's entirely up to council, what council wants to do. If council wants, that's entirely up to council some future date. My issue right now is to ensure that we can do something like that, and which means preparation of the first task order so that I can go to the Corps and say, Corps, leave us alone, we've got it, we're in process. This council at some time in the future may decide, well, you know, this street is gonna get a special assessment, or this street, that's an entirely different issue.
That's what concerns me too. That's a whole big concern. And
Well-
for that reason, I wouldn't vote for anything as far as dredging you, because I don't wanna see our citizens get assessed. And they don't wanna be assessed, so we've already gone down that road.
Well, all I can tell you, Councilwoman, is that many, many years ago, when we started this process, in the 1990s, when I attempted to do this process, and when I left this community in the year 2004, we had permits in place, we had money in place, we had a reserve of cash here in this community. We were making money in this community. I don't know what happened between 2004 and 2016 to where we have only,
Well, we had the
whatever we had or we didn't have, we're in a different position right now. And all I'm attempting to do is to allow the community, this council, to move forward with respect to the permit itself at the most reasonable economic way possible. I don't want to spend CRA money, believe me.
We have a motion and a second? Or do we have a motion?
I did make a motion to
We had a
accept it.
second.
I'll second it.
Okay. We're here. Okay, I'm just gonna say this. City staff recommends approval and selection of an engineering firm from the city's approved engineer list. I've been doing this for 16 years. I have dealt with several of these.
Your first motion is to approve it and then go to that second one, if you would, Mayor.
Well, and you're asking for both.
One at a time, please.
Okay, so we have a motion to use CRA funds for the DMMA site. Is that correct?
Correct.
Motion, second, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the second thing I would like to do, this would, either staff can approve or we can approve. You can trust me or not trust me. I have dealt with so many engineers over this last 16 years. I was asked to do a lecture, question, answer up at Sea Pines with the county. Jack had asked me to do that. I met an engineering company that this is what they do. They don't build high rises, they don't do this, they don't do that. That's Dewberry. They had, one of their staff was Florida DEP head, and one was the regional head of the EPA. I recommend strongly that we approve that, or that council does, whichever you want done.
Which one is this?
Dewberry. And I'm getting no kickback.
Yeah, I've got it.
But they do this.
Okay. I'm not
We
sure.
had
You can
Taylor
do more.
Engineering, we had Maribin, we had,
Taylor,
they don't do this.
right.
They don't do it. They're starting over. These guys that do this. They have EPA, DEP guys on their staff. I see no reason not to pick them. And,
they
I
come
don't think
talk to
anybody on
us?
the staff has as much experience as I do.
Can they come talk to us and let us know a little bit more about them?
Nancy, I don't think you understand how under the gun we are for time.
Well, we just passed the, what do you call it? I don't know.
So you need a motion for Dewberry is what you need.
That's what we need, or we can leave it to the staff.
I'm pretty sure that's what the county's using for their
Yes,
discussions on dredging.
it is.
Don't we have
And
to go
there's a
for a
reason.
proposal?
This is engineering.
No, they're on
Have
your
to go out
approval
for
list.
proposal.
But I mean, don't we wanna get a proposal from 3 different companies to find out what the price is?
You can refer to 3 different companies, you can do 2 different companies, you can do 4 different
Very, I'm
companies.
surprised at you.
Mi-
This is
long
something
as
that
we
you're
want
big
it.
into.
Correct?
Can you explain that?
Yes, please, Mr.
This is, you're not doing any construction here. The motion that it was made was to engage an engineering firm. Normally what you would do is, these engineering firms would give you a request for a task order, and they'd say, look, we'll start the dredging project or start the DMA project. They don't build anything, these engineering firms, they're not allowed to.
I know, but that,
But if when the engineering firm is going to engage a contractor, they would prepare the RFP and go out. This is just for professional services, not to build the DMA site.
right, but we've always gotten more than one.
But you can say, look, you can go out to and say, I want 2 or 3 requests for task orders, which would be an hourly billing rate as a practical
Yeah.
matter. So that's what you're
So we know
deciding.
that we're getting a
right?
good-
Right, exactly.
That's what you're
I'm saying, you
deciding.
could, you could pick 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5.
But it's not like a
But
bidding
we,
thing.
but we need,
I think the citizens would expect that of us, to at least do that.
I
None of
need,
the ones out there do.
All right.
So,
Your choices now are take my recommendation or let the staff pick one.
Our choices are, I think, to get a proposal from them and see what they're gonna charge us.
And see how much time we can waste.
these are all, on our approved
Yes.
On the
list. We've
approved
already
list,
approved
yeah,
all.
so since I think it's understood that you don't need to reapprove the list, so.
Right.
Yes, you could get a task order from 1, 2, or leave it to count, staff.
Do we have a motion on the floor yet?
Now, we have approved that we're gonna use the CRA money. We have not approved the engineering. Again, we can either pick a engineer or we can let the staff pick one.
You could bring that back to us? Or is time the,
if council chooses 1 or 2 engineering firms, I will task them immediately tomorrow to come back and give me their proposals. But I will move as quickly as possible with one of those firms that you selected. If you select one firm, I'll move with them. If you select 2, I'll take a look at their credentials and their proposals, and then we'll move forward with one of those 2. I'll move as quickly as I possibly can.
I can almost guarantee you Dewberry is gonna do the entire coast on this county. Starting at, Gulf Harbors all the way up to, the top there, Hudson and Sea Pines.
I know there. Yeah, with knowing that the county's using them, I'm comfortable with that. I'm gonna make the motion to use Dewberry as our engineer.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? Public? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passes.
Let's get out of here. Oh, we got anything else?
This city just launched, by the way. That last, thing, unless you want to speak. Any other comments, we can
No.
have
No,
that.
I think we're
We
good.
done?
We're done.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. This is the best news that we